Hello, everybody. I'm Mark Herman, one of the founders of Simple. I'm very happy to welcome you on this webinar on successful advertisement and visuals. Just let's do some housekeeping. Can you just put in the chat whether you can see and hear me okay? Then I know that we actually have, okay, Tineke, Isabel. All right, good. Plenty of feedback. That's good. Thank you very much for that feedback. That means we are ready to start. So let's go to the presentation. I'll start sharing my screen. Again, to continue the housekeeping, as you've noticed, there's a chat bot on your right-hand side. There's also a box there to put questions or to ask questions. Please don't hesitate to do so because we want to make this as interactive as possible. So I'm sharing the screen now. You see one of our dashboards. We'll talk about that later. And let's first put on the presentation. There we go. Good. Okie doke. So we're set for about 45 minutes of presentation, assuming you have plenty of questions. So there we go. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? We'll be talking about choosing the right visuals for your recruitment campaign. Anything else you see on the slide, there's a reason why it's crossed out. It's because we're not going to be talking about it. I might refer to some of those things, but we have actually separate webinars on those, and we'll share the links to those also. This is the second webinar for today, because this morning we talked at length about the new changes as of 7th of December of Facebook, which have a big impact on your recruitment campaigns. But again, we won't be talking about that today. So what's the agenda? Very briefly, I want to get everybody up to speed on why it's a good idea to recruit on Facebook. Then how to get your basics right, because choosing the right visual means also testing the right visual and making sure you have the right visual for that particular campaign. And that means you have to do a couple of setups to make sure you can track the right conclusions for your testing. We'll obviously give you some examples, some best practices, and there's a little surprise at the end. Okay, now, as I mentioned, I'm one of the founders of Simple, and very briefly, what is it that we do? Basically, we build software that helps our customers to recruit on Facebook and Instagram. To do that, we analyze, or our software analyzes about 11 million data points per month to do that. And this is a couple of our customers. So we have a couple of corporate customers like Neuhaus, Duracell, Heineken Group, but also, about 90% of our customers are SMEs, small and medium companies who lack the internal capabilities to do recruitment marketing, because that's the only thing we do, that is recruitment marketing campaigns. Now, let's kick it off by just one very short introduction on Facebook. And when we will be talking Facebook, we actually mean the Meta Group. Probably most of you will know that Facebook has a company rebranded into Meta, which means that they now have the Facebook platform that you well know, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, and the last icon on there is probably not well known to everybody. That's a Facebook audience network. That's actually an affiliate of other websites and apps linked to Facebook, which actually also show advertising if you so desire. And that's whether that's a good idea or not to use that audience network. That's a separate webinar altogether. But when you see me looking to the right, that's not because I lost interest, but that's because my screen with the chat and with the questions is there. So I'm always hoping that we get some questions. So whenever we talk Facebook, as of now, we actually mean the whole Facebook group, and the whole relevant platform. And why do we think it's important for you to spend time and to actually recruit on Facebook? Because most classic job channels like LinkedIn, like Monster, like Indeed, like Stepstone, like Job Ads or VDP in Belgium, they will target active job seekers. So those people are actually kind of looking for a job. And there's nothing wrong with that, but apart from the fact that there's not that many of them. It's about 20% of the population, employee population, obviously. So it's not a big group, one. And secondly, it's a group everybody's targeting. So, these are the people where you compete for a lot of eyeballs or mind space, so to say. While the biggest advantage is actually in the passive job seekers, which is 80% of the market, of which, and there's some interesting research on that, 90% of those people actually say, well, yes, I'm not looking, but if the right opportunity would come along, something closer to home, better for my career, better work-life balance, whatever the reasons might be, I might be interested to apply. And that's kind of an audience which you can only reach through the channels where they are present every day, hence the use of social media. So that as a quick recap for those of you who are not yet convinced. But I'll just kind of launch a small poll, and you'll find those polls on the right-hand bottom of your screen, just for me to understand how many of you have actually published a paid recruitment campaign. So not just put something on your Facebook wall of your company, but actually a paid recruitment campaign. So you put money on that, whether that's via boosting a post for 20 euros, doesn't really matter. If you could just vote yes or no to that, so I have a bit of an indication. Okay, well, it's a good balanced audience. So we have about half, I would say. That's very interesting. Good news is we have something for both of you. So we're going to talk a bit about the basics. But those of you who are aware of the basics, just bear with me for a couple of slides. But then I want to get everybody up to speed on that. Let's start with that. So getting the basics right means that it's very important to understand how Facebook actually structures their advertising. And there's three elements in that. If you launch a campaign, if you want to do an advertising, you have to choose an objective for your campaign. Your objective could be awareness, i.e. you want to show your advertising to as many people as possible. Or, and that's something we would advise, you could choose, for instance, an objective conversion, meaning you want to look for people who are actually going to convert, i.e. apply to your vacancy. So that's something which you decide in the top level, which is at the campaign level. The level below is where you define your ad sets. And at the ad set level, you can define the target audience. Whom are you targeting? The channels. So for instance, if you would say, look, I want to show this ad to Facebook, on Facebook, Instagram, but not on Facebook Messenger or on the audience network. And that's also very important where you define your budget, either a daily budget or a maximum budget, depending on how you want to set up your campaign. And only below that, the ad level, that's where you define your copy and your visuals, the actual ad that people will see. It's very important to keep that in mind because it's not a 1-1-1. So meaning you can have 4 ads in one ad set. And then you have those 4 ads competing against each other for the same audience, for instance. But you could have 3 different ad sets under one campaign, but you can only have one campaign objective. So if you want to work both on awareness and on conversion, you're going to have to set up 2 different campaigns. And again, I know I'm kind of rushing through this. I hope that's clear for those of you who are not aware. But it's important to kind of keep that in mind that we'll be talking about ads for the rest of the presentation. That's not the only thing you need to play around with. You need to think about your audience, your channels, your budget at the other level. And again, if I'm going too quick, if you have specific questions, please don't hesitate to ask another question on that. Good. So that's your campaign components. And what's also very important is that you also keep in mind that we're always working into a funnel. What do I mean with that is that, and I'll put this on immediately because I think most of you will be aware of what a recruitment funnel is. Meaning, if you have 20 people applying for your vacancy, some of those will drop out during the selection process, either because you don't want them to continue or because they basically stop the process themselves. So you start with 20, you enter the selection process with 15, you lose another 12, and then you might hire 3 of those people. So by definition, the recruitment process is already a funnel. And what's important to keep in mind is that the same is actually valid for your marketing funnel leading up to the recruitment. So when you think about recruitment campaigns, think about funnels. Don't just think about the advertising that you show to attract people to a specific vacancy. Also start thinking about, where is your brand? Is your brand or your company brand or your employer brand? Do people know about that? Should you first work on that? And that's something you could do in the discover phase. And that's important to understand, because it's actually, in order to have a successful campaign, you need to think about these steps, and also on where it's going to be most relevant for you to spend most of your budget in or not. Again, I'm only skimming here the top line concepts, but these are important for when we're going to be talking about the visuals later. Now, let's start with a very important point on choosing the right visuals, which is something we call, it's not just we, the whole world calls this A/B testing, but it's something we do on a daily basis. Now, what's A/B testing? A/B testing is an approach where you actually are able to select what works best in your ad. Because an ad that is kind of going to be seen by your potential applicants or by your candidates is not just the visual that they can see. It's also the text or the copy that's above it. It's the job title that is being advertised, but it could also be the call to action, right? Which is at the bottom of the advertising. And what you do in an A/B ad is that actually you take those 4 elements, you keep 3 of them exactly the same, and you change 1 element, in this case a visual, right? And then you test both ads, one against the other, to actually see which one works best. Very important, and I'll kind of mention that probably another 2 or 3 times, is that you should never change more than 1 parameter. Because, for instance, in this example, if you would change the copy and the visual at the same time, if the ad on the right would work better, you would never know why exactly that is, right? And that means, again, coming back to the funnel thinking, in order to kind of find your perfect ad, you have to be a bit creative and actually start mixing different elements. So you can, for instance, first test picture A versus picture B. If you then know picture B is the winner, you then use picture B, but then you test copy A versus copy B. You then know copy A is the winner, you know the combination of picture B, copy A is the winner. And then you might, for instance, do another test on audience, right? Target audience A versus target audience B, to better understand what's working well. So this concept of A/B testing is really very important to keep in mind, because I will show you some examples. You should never trust your gut, right? We've learned that the past 4 years is that ads where we think this one's going to work fantastically, it almost, no, I'm not going to say almost, but in many cases, it's actually the exact opposite. And the people have spoken, right? Because the numbers are always right. If people prefer one ad over the other, that's where you have to follow. So I hope that the concept of A/B testing has become a bit clarified to you. And again, I'm looking here. I don't see people protesting or saying, what in hell's name are you talking about? So I'm just going to assume everything is clear up to now. Now, let's make it a bit more complicated. You understand the A/B testing. You're saying, I'm committed. I understand, Mark. That's what we want to do. Obviously, in order to be able to kind of draw conclusions from that, you're going to have to be able to understand, once your results come in, which ad was working better, right? And that's not that easy, because it might sound easy, but once people come onto your website, they apply, you actually need to be able to know whether they clicked on ad B or picture A or picture B. Let's put it like that, right? In order to do that, and that's the last kind of complicated thing I'm going to be talking, and then we'll move on to the fancy visuals, is the importance of UTM codes. Or if you want to really impress your friends, you can talk about the urchin tracking module. Although I guess, I would be able to impress my friends already by just saying UTM. Now, what is that? You've all clicked on a link before. When you click on a link somewhere, you come onto the website and you see a massive and a very long URL in the browser window, right? You'll probably notice that there's UTM source, UTM medium. Now, this information is something which is kind of transferred by advertisers, or in this case, recruiters, with the ad. So when people click on an ad, that all that data is transferred, so actually you can able to analyze afterhand where people were coming from. And these are some examples of UTM codes. Now, you can do whatever you want. There's no rules here, right? If you want to use UTM source, which we tend to use for basically the name of the platform, if you want to use UTM source for the country where you're publishing, go ahead and be merry, right? There's no rules on that. It's up to you on deciding on how you actually use the UTM codes. You can see the examples here on how we use that, because that's what we felt was most logical. But it's completely up to you on how you actually want to go ahead with that. But keep in mind, if you put your advertising live on Facebook, and that's the moment when you need the UTM codes, if you don't add the UTM codes at that moment, right, you're never going to be able afterwards to understand which one of your ads was working best. Good. Now, that's about UTM codes. Let's make this a bit more interactive. And let's assume you have an idea of a campaign, you know what your objective is, you know where you want to go, you know your target audience, and you know how you want to set up your whole campaign structure. But you need a bit of creativity, you need some insights, you need some inspiration, so to say, on what visual you're going to use. Well, one of the best places to start, we think, is to use the Facebook ad library, which allows you to look at what ads other companies, and that might be your competition, but other companies are actually using today on Facebook to recruit. Now, to make that a bit more clear, we'll briefly go live to the Facebook ad library, which you can see here. Now, just a question to the audience, is there any company you would like to see their advertising from? Just put a name in the chat that allows me to drink for 20 seconds. Just put some names in the chat and we'll check out their advertising. Okay. We have Lidl, Auto Uncle. Let's start with Lidl and let's look at all ads here. And let's take Lidl Deutschland. No ads for Lidl in Deutschland. Sorry, I know why, sorry. I set up because I actually clicked Belgium. Obviously, my bad. Go here. Let's say all ads. And let's go for Lidl in Deutschland. And there you go, that's better. So here you can see all the ads that Lidl is currently, so at this moment, is running in Germany. You can actually see on what platforms. So you can see this, for instance, they're only showing this one on Instagram. This one they're showing only on Facebook. So you actually get a lot of data on how their visuals look. If you want to know whether they're actually using some of these ads to recruit, because this is one of the changes that Facebook made on the 7th of December, you have to actually inform companies that you are using recruitment ads. And let's scroll down, and there you go, right? So now you can see actually the recruitment ads that Lidl is running, right, at this very moment. By the way, if you're not aware on the changes that Facebook made on the 7th of December, please Google it, read our blog on this, because these changes are very important. If you don't take into account these changes, and I'm not kidding, if you don't take into account these changes, your account will be blocked. And you don't want to be having an account that is blocked, because it's very difficult to unblock it. So maybe I'll just ask Aaron, one of my colleagues, who is probably, I think, also in the area, whether Aaron can actually that I share the link to the blog we wrote on this, Aaron, because it might be interesting. And also we'll share the link to the webinar, which we did this morning. Good. I'll just take one more company. And we have Aline asking for Accent jobs. Let me just go here. Now Accent is a company in Belgium. That means we have to click Belgium. Let's do all ads. And let's do Accent. There you go. And now we can see the ads that Accent job. It's about 42 ads that they have live at the moment. You can see them here. They have some videos for retail employees and different languages. And interestingly here, and this is interesting, what they're obviously doing here, because they're showing these on all platforms, they're actually doing an A/B test where they actually are experimenting with showing this visual as a video and this as a video plus a call to action banner here. So you can see that when I talk about A/B testing, we're not the only ones doing that. And now let's do one more test and see whether our friends at Accent are also following the new Facebook rules. They're not, because they actually have about only 21 of their ads are on the new rules. So probably we should also make sure they read our blog before that goes wrong over there. So we'll also share the link to the Facebook ads library. But like I said, this is a good place to start. Look at what your competition is doing. Look at what other people are doing to get a good idea on what is working, right? Now, so you've defined your ad. You have your campaign ready. Let's say you have a couple of ideas on what kind of visuals you might use. Now what's next, right? Let's start up the presentation again. So you use Facebook Ads Library. We've just shared the link in there. Bear with us for now. I know you all want to go and check out your own company ads or your competition ads. You can do that later. You have all day. We still have some nice tips for you to share, and as I mentioned, a nice surprise at the end. But let's go and look at some examples, right? And let's do some real life A/B testing. I'm going to go into the poll, and I'm going to publish the first one for the first ad. So what you see here is an A/B test we've run for one of our retail customers who is looking for a sales consultant. Picture on the left is a picture of the team, and the picture on the right is the same team, but this was at the beginning of one of the first lockdown. Never thought I was going to say at the beginning of the first lockdown, but yes, here we are, lockdown number 5, where they actually have a mask on and they put a smartphone with their smile on in front of their faces. Now, which ad do you think scored best? Let's have a look at the results. And the one on the right, so the one with the masks on, seems to be winning. Well, it's not even a tight race. I think it's 65%, so a clear preference for the ad on the right. I'm very happy with that choice because that's exactly what we thought was going to happen. We also thought this was a great opportunity to show that we're in touch, or at least the employer is in touch with what's happening in the real world. Unfortunately, the numbers didn't agree, right? Because we had many more applications. Well, we had almost double the applications on the ad on the left. And on top of that, the CPA, which is a cost per application. So it's your total cost for a campaign divided by the number of applications. Your cost per application was almost 30% lower than the ad on the right. So again, first, good learning, importance of A/B testing. Let's do another one. And this one of our favorite customers, Dielectric, they have an amazing technology which actually turns cow shit into energy. You can see the installation that does it on the left. So this is the actual installation where they do their, I was going to say their magic, that might be pushing it a bit. It's obviously pure science. And on the right, you see a nice picture of the team with the sweaters of Bioelectric. While, you know the rules now. We've kept the text the same. We've kept the call to action the same. The only difference is the visual. So let's have a look at how you voted. This is a bit more outspoken. So most of you, I think the votes are in now. So most of you think the picture with the team scored best. And you're right? We had more than double the applications with the picture on the right. But, and that's also why we included this test, you actually see that the CPA, so your cost per application, is very similar, right? Which at the end of the day is even more important than the amount of applications that you're running. And this is interesting because then it actually is even better to go and look at the quality of the applications, which we can also do because when we look at the approval rate, how many candidates were approved to the customer to the second round. And in this case, we noticed that the approval rate for the picture on the left was actually higher, right? So again, important to crunch the numbers, right? Important not to trust your gut, but also very important to go deep enough and do the analysis. Because in this case, the picture on the left was the one which delivered the best candidates, i.e. the ones that were approved by our client. Good, let's do another one. You've seen this picture already in the presentation, but let's put it up here and let's have a look and what you think would score best. And some people are sticking to the team theme, if it's a bit meta maybe. Okay, although I probably shouldn't make jokes about meta in a meta presentation. But okay, well, interestingly, that's also what we thought would be the case. But it was completely the other way around, right? In this case, the picture of the office, which, and I'll be very open and honest, we have no clue why, right? But that's also the beauty of A/B testing. It's not always clear on why some picture is scoring better than the other, but the numbers are clear. We had almost 70 applications with the office picture, had half of the CPA and the one on the right. So that's, that test clearly kind of made us decide to continue with the picture on the left. I think we have time to do one more, which is one of our customers who is active in roofing, basically repairing roofs. And when they were looking for a calculator, that didn't mean they were looking for the machine, but that's a very specific construction function where people are kind of basically calculating budgets, etc. So let's just give it 5 more seconds because the votes are running in. But okay, it's going to stay around 70-30. So most of you thought the picture on the left was working well. Obviously, it wasn't. Otherwise, we wouldn't have put it in there. But again, do not ask me why, because the only reason we put the picture on the right in the test because we didn't have any other pictures. I mean, we would normally never accept this picture, but there was not enough time. The customer wanted to go live, so that's why we used that picture. And it outperformed the picture on the left. But that's no value-based judgment on the quality of the nice gentleman on the left. But that's just what the audience is saying. So again, I hope I kind of convinced you that choosing the right picture is not something you do 2-3 people sitting around the table and saying, well, I like this picture because this basically conveys what we want to say as a company, etc., etc., etc. That's really very important to throw that out of the window, right? We're not talking about fancy employer brand campaigns here. We're talking about performance-based campaigns. The objective of these campaigns is to make sure you get the right candidates at the lowest possible cost. And that's also something which we kind of try to differentiate ourselves from, all the other opportunities or possibilities that are out there. Our software focuses on performance campaigns, i.e., because that's what you need to do now, right? Your hiring manager or your boss is telling you, we need somebody in this role. That's not the moment to do fancy employer branding campaigns. That's the moment when you have to do actual campaigns that deliver results. And that means test your visuals, test your campaign, make sure you have the right setup and you reach the right people. Good. I'm just glancing over, but still no questions in there. Now, I hope I convinced you already that you should just put a picture on there and hope that it will work well, that you need to do some testing. But even, with, as we mentioned, we've done more than 6,600 campaigns. We were able to then kind of draw some conclusions from that will help you in setting up your next campaign. One of them is that it's very important, and this is basic stuff, but we still see people making mistakes, so that it's very important to upload your picture in the right format, right? The Facebook newsfeed or the Instagram newsfeeds have a different format than the stories format, which is much more vertical. If you upload the wrong ratio, Facebook will just hash it a bit and they will make their own picture. They will add some bands or some color bands. It's going to look ugly, right? So you want to make sure you want to keep control. You want to make sure you know that what your visitors or your viewers are going to be seeing in your ad. So make sure you have the right format. Secondly, and there's a couple of learnings here. Use authentic pictures, right? Then we'll give you some examples here. I think you've also seen some examples from the A/B testing. Is that do not make this corporate pictures with people posing. Do not use stock images. I'll repeat that later on. And that's one thing. Don't forget you're in a medium where people are seeing your ad after seeing a couple of pictures from their friends, from their family. Those are not professional pictures either, right? So it's actually better to blend in. It's better to be authentic and show the real face of your company. Having said that, it is important to make sure you have uniform communication. So if people click on an ad, the page or the vacancy page they will be landing on, make sure it's using the same colors. Ideally, it's using the same pictures. So you have consistency. Because what sometimes it's not because somebody clicks on your ad that will actually spend attention on your vacancy page. We see a lot of what is called bouncing. People click on an ad, they come onto your page, and after 1 or 2 seconds, they already click away, right? So keep in mind is that you have to earn attention every step of the way. It doesn't stop after the first click. You have to make sure that people stick with you, stick on your page, and therefore that you keep a uniform language, uniform colors all around. Also check out the Facebook best practices. There's, Google that. There's also some new stuff coming up. One of them, for instance, being that it's always better not to have more than 20% of your visual taken up by text, right? You can see here, this is about, I think it's about 15% where we have the banner with wanted sales representative. I wouldn't go much higher than that because that's going to the algorithm doesn't like that. So you want to keep your text on your visual as low as possible. The wanted banner plus a function title is something we like to use. We also A/B tested that, a gazillion times. It's always better to kind of upfront state what it is you're wanting, what you're looking for. That also allows you to, for instance, do some testing with function names. But please make sure that when people see this, they actually understand it's an ad for a vacancy or for recruitment, right? Keep the same branding. I talked about that already, and tailor everything to their target audience. If you're looking for young people, keep in mind what they might be clicking on, what is trending, what would appeal to them, instead of if you're targeting an older audience or a more senior audience. Good. So those are 6 to-dos when you develop your next campaign. And then, okay, so this is another example what we meant with tailoring to your target audience. Energy expert was, we're looking for an engineer, right? When you're looking for an engineer, you don't want to, and I know this is cliche, right? But it's a cliche for a reason. You want to make sure you show some numbers, you show some laptop, you show an authentic picture. So keep in mind the kind of audience you're trying to attract. What you shouldn't do is, as I mentioned before, is actually, let me just check. No questions yet. Come on, people. I want to have at least one question today. Do not use stock images. And these are the pictures you see here are the typical pictures where, marketing people love this because this is the kind of company we want to be. This is shown togetherness, our values, etc., etc., etc. It does not work, right? People smell this is fake. People will not click on this unless you're recruiting for Google or for Apple, right? You might get away with this, but most of you are not Google or Apple because you wouldn't be in this webinar. Or if you would, we would have to start charging money for this webinar. But do not use stock images. And again, as I mentioned before, do not use too much text. Now, we talked about testing. Let's see something coming into the chat there. Yes, Tineke, how about GIFs? Very good question. And we've tested that. I think if it's relevant, just don't make it don't make it a funny-looking cat or any kind of meme. I think it needs to have some relevance to your vacancy. But it gives us a very good idea. Okay, just this is an expert comment, or this might be is that the advantage of using GIFs is that you actually have a moving image. We have a video, and that will allow you to do some better tracking afterwards. Because if you have video, and actually I'll show you some examples of videos which we have used. The big advantage of video is that actually you can retarget on people, for instance, who have seen 50% of your video. And the same is actually true for GIFs. It's a bit more complicated, but actually the advantage of using GIFs is that it will make your retargeting campaigns a lot easier. So yes, please go ahead and do some testing with GIFs. You see some examples of the video here. Now, obviously, you can also do A/B testing on video. And this is just an example which we've done for the city of Antwerp. It's also one of our customers. Antwerp, obviously, being the center of the world. For those of you who don't know it, because that's where we're based. It's an amazing city. But joke aside, we were helping the city of Antwerp to find a financial colleague for the financial department. And also there in video, you can do A/B testing. The A/B test we've done here is actually starting with a wanted in the beginning or at the end. But apart from that, and I hope it's going to be clear, apart from that, we're using exactly the same visuals, exactly the same text. It's just that the order is slightly different. So do not limit your thinking on A/B testing with just using pictures. You can do this for videos. You can do this for target audiences. You can use A/B testing for everything. Now, important to keep in mind, if you're using A/B testing, do not test too many variables at once. That's one. And secondly, also very important, do not forget to add UTM codes, because if you don't add the right UTM codes, you might as well throw your money away, because you're never going to be able to draw conclusions from the A/B testing in there. Now, what we'll do, because I've talked about many different things, I'll just ask Aaron to add the link to our academy, because in our academy, you'll be able to see all our other white papers and webinars on targeting, on visuals, on data-driven recruitment. But also, if you register, you'll be able to actually use our software. And we have 5 minutes left. I'll quickly show you what our software does, because we started the software knowing that advertising on Facebook is actually quite complicated. Hence, what we've done is built one tool where for a minimal amount of money, you're able to actually start up not only your advertising campaign. So if, for instance, this is an example, let's assume you're looking for a barista in Central Park in New York. You can set up your advertising here. You can turn on or off the banner. You can select your own visual. You can add your logo just by clicking here. So you don't need Photoshop. You don't need any other kind of tool. You can upload your picture here. And you can do the cropping. So let's, because as I mentioned already before, Instagram is a different format. You can do all of the cropping that is needed within our tool. And very, very important, you can also add different visuals. And the only thing you need to do is add different visuals, add different texts, and our software will automatically do the A/B testing in the background, start checking which one of your advertising is working best. We have a very easy way to define your targeting. So let's just assume you want to look for a barista in New York. You can then check all the past data we have on similar functions. If you then click hospitality, we will use the data of our more than 6,000 campaigns linked to hospitality, and that data will be used then to make sure your campaign outperforms. Finally, what's also very important, once you go live in the social media, you'll be able to track how much money you have spent, what your total budget is, how many ads you have live, what ads are working well, what ads are not working well. You can all see that here. And very important, you'll also be able to manage your candidates here. So you'll see which candidates have applied. You can then click to see the answers they've given in the application. You can email them, you can call them from our software. And then once you want to know, you know what you want to do with Chandler. So look, I don't want to kind of continue with Chandler. I'm going to end the procedure for Chandler. You move him to the end procedure. You then get the possibility to choose an email to actually send Chandler the reasons why he's not in the loop anymore. So all of that, from starting your campaign from scratch to the very end, everything is linked in our software. And also now, at this moment, we've added the Academy here on the bottom left. If you click on there, that's where you can see all our content, all our white papers, all your webinars, which you can use. You just click on them, and then you can actually, there you go, you can actually see the recordings of our webinar. So, and then just coming back to the presentation, let's do that here. Let's go back here, because not only does our software make it easy for you to do A/B testing, to track your budget, but on top of that, our algorithm will automatically manage your campaigns and make sure your money is spent as efficiently as possible. And that's why we like to call this recruitment marketing for non-marketeers. You need zero marketing experience. You don't even need a Facebook page. Everything is run through our system. Good. So much for the shameless plugs for our software. And as I mentioned, sorry, I didn't mention that yet. If you register today, you get a 2-week free trial. And if you, let's say, what are we now? We're Tuesday. If you launch your first campaign this week, we'll give you 50 euros media credit for free. Good. Now, Thomas is asking what our experience is with TikTok, and that's a very good question, Thomas. We've started experimenting with TikTok, I think 5 to 6 weeks ago, and we are very pleasantly surprised. It does not yet have the same targeting capabilities as Facebook, so you need to do even more A/B testing, and it's also a bit more complicated in TikTok to do so. But we are experimenting with it. We're now doing it for about 20 of our customers. And let's say that I would say in half of them, probably maybe, well, 8 to 9, we're actually getting applications at a lower cost than Facebook. It's a bit depending on the audience. It's a bit depending on the vacancy, obviously, but we are preparing a webinar on that. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. Follow us on our socials, follow our LinkedIn page, and we'll make sure, or register in the Academy. That's actually what you do. Forget our socials. Register in the Academy, because then you'll be able to kind of get all our content for free. And then for free, the Academy will be free forever and ever and ever, right? It's only the software that you only get a 2-week free trial on. Okay, so Thomas, that was the question on TikTok. Are there any other questions? Like I said, 45 minutes on the dot. So when we have some time for questions, if people have any more questions. And in the meantime, I will launch our last poll to ask you how happy you were with this webinar and whether you would recommend it. Because this obviously influences my bonus. If I don't get good scores, I will not get my Christmas bonus this year. My children will be very unhappy. There will be no Christmas dinner. So don't feel pressured into giving me a high score. But there you go. Okay, any other questions? I'll give you 10 more seconds to think of the most interesting question you have ever thought about. 5 seconds left. Okay. I guess that's it then for today. No more questions. I will, sorry, just one message in the chat. I see Natalie is typing. I'm very hopeful that Natalie has an amazing question prepared. Okay, Natalie, good, interesting question. We are currently setting up the pricing, but the prices range from 99 euros to 300. So 99 euros if you want to have one advertising campaign live, to 349 euros if you want to have 10 campaigns live at the same time. So it's basically depending on how much you need. So it's 99 or 349 euros. Okay. Thank you for that question, by the way. I actually didn't mention that. But all right, I think that brings us to the end of this session. Thank you, Natalie, for saying thank you. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope it was interesting. And stay tuned for our future webinars.